There's a morning ritual so powerful, it turned the most stressed man on earth into its calmest. And today, you'll discover how a Roman emperor who commanded 5,000 soldiers managed a crumbling empire and faced betrayal from his closest allies, still woke up every single morning and chose peace over panic. Have you ever noticed how some people seem untouchable by chaos? Their business collapses. They rebuild. Their relationships fall apart. They adapt. The world goes insane around them. They remain still. While everyone else drowns in anxiety, these people operate from a completely different place. Not because their life is easier. Not because they feel nothing. Because they trained their mornings differently. And you know what most people believe about that kind of calm? That it's a personality type. That some people are just born stoic. That emotional resilience is genetic luck, not a daily practice. But what if I told you the most powerful man in the ancient world, a man who had every reason to collapse, left behind a step-by-step morning system that created unshakable inner stability? Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire at its peak. He commanded armies. He outlived 4 of his 5 children. He watched his best friend betray him. He fought wars for 13 years straight. And every single morning, before any of that weight landed on his shoulders, he performed a ritual he wrote about in private, never intending for anyone to read it. We found it anyway. It's called Meditations. And once you understand what he actually did each morning, you'll never look at your first hour the same way again. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? I read every single one. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Weight of the World, Rome. 161 AD. Marcus Aurelius was 40 years old when he became emperor. And on his very first morning in power, he did something no one expected. He didn't celebrate. He didn't call his generals. He didn't review the treasury reports that were already piling at his door. He sat alone. And he wrote, "Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial." That's the opening of what would become one of the most read books in human history. And notice what it is. Not affirmations, not goals, not a gratitude list, a warning to himself about the day ahead. Because Marcus understood something most rulers and most people completely miss. The chaos doesn't begin in the world. It begins in the mind that is unprepared for the world. Before one senator argued against him, before one general asked for impossible resources, before one report of famine, plague, or barbarian invasion crossed his desk, Marcus Aurelius had already faced it all, in his mind, at dawn, alone. He called this Praemeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not pessimism, preparation. Chapter 2. The first practice, expecting difficulty. Here's what Marcus did in the first minutes of every morning. He mentally rehearsed everything that could go wrong that day, not in a spiraling, anxious way, in a calm, deliberate, almost surgical way. He would ask himself, who will I deal with today? Who tests my patience? What task will feel thankless? Where will I be tempted to react instead of respond? Then, and this is the part most people skip, he reminded himself why this difficulty was not only expected, but necessary. They are made for one another, the strong for the weak, and those with reason for those who lack it. He didn't tell himself the day would be easy. He told himself the hard parts were the point, That difficulty wasn't an obstacle to his purpose. Difficulty was his purpose. Think about what this does to your nervous system. When you expect the morning meeting to go smoothly, and it doesn't, you're derailed. When you expect that meeting to be hard, and you've already decided how you'll respond, you're unshakable. Marcus built his entire mornings around this one principle. Prepare for reality. Don't demand reality, prepare for you. Chapter 3. The second practice, the view from above. After premeditation, Marcus did something strange. He zoomed out, not metaphorically. He literally trained himself to visualize the world from a distance, from above the clouds, above Rome, above the empire, until the problem he was holding felt appropriately small. He wrote, "How many a Chrysippus, how many a Socrates, how many an Epictetus, how many another, time has swallowed them up." Translation: everyone you're stressed about, they'll be gone. You'll be gone. Even Rome will be gone. This sounds like nihilism. It isn't. For Marcus, it was liberation. Because if everything ends, the betrayal, the war, the insult from yesterday, then right now, in this moment, you are free to choose your response without the weight of eternity pressing down on you. The Romans called this subspecie eternitatis, seeing life under the light of eternity. And Marcus practiced it every single morning before he allowed the world to make its demands. He'd write about it, sitting in his tent at the frontier, with armies waiting outside and a dying empire depending on his next decision. And he'd remind himself that even this too was temporary. And somehow that made him more present, more decisive, more calm. Chapter 4, the third practice, defining the only thing that matters. Once Marcus had prepared for difficulty and zoomed out from the chaos, he did something precise. He asked himself one question: what is in my control today? Not what he wanted to control, not what he should control, what he actually could. And the answer, every morning, was the same: his judgments, his responses, his effort, his character. That's it. Not the weather in Germania. Not whether the Senate would agree. Not whether his generals would follow orders brilliantly or disastrously. Not whether his body would hold up under years of military campaigns. Only his inner world, his choices, his attention. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But here's what most people miss about this. It wasn't just a philosophy. It was a daily sorting exercise. Every morning, Marcus would mentally go through the day ahead and sort every item into two categories: what he could control, what he couldn't. Then he would release the second category entirely. Not ignore it. Not pretend it didn't exist. Release responsibility for it. This freed up extraordinary mental energy. Energy that most people waste all day, pushing against things they cannot move. Marcus pushed only on what he could actually move, and then he pushed with everything he had. Chapter 5, the fourth practice. The morning commitment before Marcus Aurelius stood up, before he dressed, before he stepped into the machinery of empire. He made a single commitment. Not a list of tasks, not a schedule. One commitment. I will act as a human being today. That sounds almost laughably simple, but unpack it. For Marcus, acting as a human being meant acting according to reason and virtue, not according to fear, ego, approval-seeking, or anger. It meant treating every person he encountered, slave, senator, barbarian, emperor, as a being of equal inherent worth. He wrote, In the morning, when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being. Unwillingly. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, military commander, admitted he sometimes didn't want to get up. But his commitment wasn't to feel like getting up. It was to act like a human being regardless of how he felt. That distinction changed everything. Because discipline built on feeling collapses the moment the feeling changes. Discipline built on commitment holds even when everything else doesn't. Every morning, in that private journal no one was supposed to read, Marcus renewed the same commitment. Not to be perfect, not to be powerful, to be human, deliberately, completely, without excuse. Chapter 6. The man behind the emperor. 1 year after Marcus Aurelius became emperor, his co-ruler died. He was suddenly alone at the top. Plagues were killing hundreds of thousands. Germanic tribes were pushing the northern borders. The economy was strained beyond its limits. And his morning ritual didn't change. Not once. His training partners, the philosophers he'd studied under since childhood, noticed something different about him compared to every other ruler they had advised. He didn't become the empire. He remained himself within the empire. That separation, the ruler and the man, the role and the soul, was preserved every single morning before the world got to him. Because Marcus understood something most powerful people never learn. The greatest threat to your judgment isn't your enemies. It's your own untrained mind. The mind that wakes up reactive, anxious, identified with yesterday's failure or tomorrow's fear. The morning ritual was armor, not against the world, against his own worst impulses. Chapter 7. The System. After 30 years of daily practice, Marcus Aurelius had developed something precise. A 4-part morning architecture that restructured how he met every day. 1. Praemeditatio. Expect difficulty. Name it before it names you. 2. The view from above. Zoom out until the problem is properly sized. 3. The control sort. Identify only what is yours to move. Release the rest completely. 4. The morning commitment. One promise. To act as a human being, regardless of how the day responds. Simple in theory, brutal to sustain across decades. But here's the truth about Marcus's morning ritual that no one talks about. He failed. Constantly. He got angry. He doubted himself. He confessed in his journal that he sometimes woke up and immediately felt the pull toward comfort, avoidance, self-pity, and he wrote about all of it, honestly, without flinching. Because Meditations wasn't a record of his achievements, it was a record of his practice. The daily, imperfect, relentless practice of a man who refused to let the world build his mind for him. That's what's available to you. Not an empire, not philosophical genius. The practice, the warrior's truth. At age 58, Marcus Aurelius died on the frontier. Still at war, still working. In the journals left behind, this passage stands out above all others. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Not eventually. Not when life gets easier. Not when you finally have the right morning routine and the perfect schedule and the ideal circumstances. Now, this morning, with whatever you have. The most powerful man in the world spent his mornings not managing power, but managing himself. And his only advantage wasn't genius, or strength, or luck. It was a practice he returned to every single dawn, without exception. Your mind's chaos isn't permanent. It's the result of what you do, or don't do, in that first hour. If this changed how you see your mornings, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and tell me in the comments, which of Marcus's 4 practices will you start tomorrow? Write it publicly. A commitment made out loud is the first act of discipline. Remember, you're not fighting the day. You're preparing for it. Now go meet it, like an emperor would.